What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to the third video on this painting that we started about a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago. So this is a Nelson Shanks study. I saw some comments about the reference. I have linked it in the description box of the video, but if you're interested in me putting the link in the chat, I can also do that too. I'll just copy and paste it from my web browser. This is titled How to Paint Realistic. Realistic is in quotation marks for a reason, because there's a lot of ambiguity in that term, realistic. I mean, what does that even mean? In classical settings, the usual kind of nomenclature or whatever is make the thing look like the thing. That's what's usually said when it's referred to making something look realistic. Now I know that this being the third stream of this same painting, many of you may not be that interested in this. Now those of you that are interested in this, you'll be in for a treat, because there's some things that I'm going to explain to you that may be new to some of you, but may be a good refresher to others. First, I'm going to talk about the beginning of this painting and how this painting was developed. I started this, and if you remember, I titled the first video on it "Old School Old School Style." Basically, how I was taught back in the day, over 10 years ago, how to paint at Studio Incaminati, the school in Philadelphia. Hey Francisco, welcome. Let me see if I can read this. Christina70, welcome. So this was started in the way that I was taught to paint. Now, Studio Incaminati has changed a lot over the years since I've been there. But when I was there, one of the main complaints was that they didn't really teach how to finish a painting, make the painting look realistic. And if you look at the student body of artworks from that school, you'll see a little bit less of the realism in the ending of their paintings and their final results, and a little more of the kind of sergeant kind of bravura kind of finish. And there's nothing wrong with that. And since those days, the aesthetic has maintained, it's been kind of consistent ever since. And it pretty much begins with Nelson Shanks, the original artist that painted the reference that we're working from there. He didn't really teach the finish in quotation marks, because we'll get into that, what it means to make something look realistic. Now I'm mixing a simple skin tone. This is pretty much just an orange with white with a little bit of blue. Hey Denise, thanks for watching from Holland. Welcome. And if anyone has any art related questions, any questions at all, just feel free to ask. Now, this skin tone, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna dedicate this part of the palette to be my lighter values. As we go down, there's going to be darker values. And we're going to focus a lot with values here. Hey Johnny, thanks for watching from Florida. Florida seems like a nice place to be right now, especially since it's getting kind of cold here in Virginia. So a little bit about the history as I'm mixing this. Nelson Shanks didn't really teach many students the finish, the careful refinement. Now, Nelson Shanks studied in Florence. He studied the classical way of developing a painting. He did the plaster cast studies in his 20s. He won various awards. I think he even won the Greenfield Prize, um, which is kind of a big deal. So he knew how to take a painting to that next level of finish. Nelson Shanks would always talk about the original artist that painted that. Again, if you're interested in the reference of that, it's listed in the description box of this video. So he would always say, find form with freedom. So if you take a workshop at Studio Incaminati, things might be different, but if you had taken a workshop back in the day when I was there, and I did take some of the portrait workshops back then, I specifically remember that the workshops were about 3 days, one long pose, and the emphasis was always in the beginning. It didn't really get to a point where the emphasis was on the fine-tuned finish. And that's actually a very good way to teach students so that they find their own level of finish through careful research based on really strong fundamentals. That's a good thing. So I'm in no way saying anything negative about Incaminati. I think that the way that Nelson brought up his students really did pave the way for the future of art, what we have today. And a lot of the artists that did attend Incaminati or are influenced by Incaminati. So I have no qualms, no problems. I fully respect it. And what I'm going to show you now is me being someone that studied at Incaminati and then took the knowledge that I was given. Mind you, I only did level 1 the first year, and then I studied with other artists afterwards. But I took it further on my own, which is what they wanted you to do, in essence. And I want to show you how I moved along, and this is the beginning of it all. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it doesn't have to be 5. I just landed on 5 because I ran out of space. All of this here, as you might be able to hear, is dry paint, so I can't really use this. This was my palette from 14 years ago. I needed a square palette here, so just don't worry about this stuff. This has nothing to do with it. So we got a question here. Hey Phyllis, thanks for watching from Florida also. Thank you. William, no, this is not a live model. She was definitely posing from life for Nelson. This is a study of a Nelson Shanks painting. So this is a painting study from a painting, which is what I highly suggest. All of you that don't have access to a classical art school, you really would benefit more from studying paintings. Of course, they're going to be from pictures, right? They're going to be from pictures, but you'll benefit from studying from other artists' paintings. Doing these master studies will train you to see what the professional artists saw and how they simplified the information, because your brain takes in visual input from a photograph or from real life and interprets it into a painting. If you only take visual information from a photograph, you're basically say breaking your ankle and trying to run a 5K marathon. It's not going to work. You're not going to progress very much. And I say this because when you are with limitations, meaning you cannot paint from a live model. So for example, painting from a live model takes a lot of money, and you have to be in a location where there's models posing for you Or there's a school where people are hiring models to pose for long poses, not just short poses, not just 1 day or 2 day or 3 day poses. I mean, like 6 week poses, um, 3 hours per session, maybe 2 sessions or 3 sessions a week, that kind of thing. Most of us don't have access to that. I did at one point in my life have access to that. And then I moved to Virginia, and that was toast. I didn't have access to that. However, I already knew that that would be an issue, so I developed a way for my students to learn without having to attend live model sessions. The next best thing you can do, other than painting from a live model, is painting from a tablet or some kind of reference of a painting. That will make you improve dramatically. Um, don't waste your time painting from photo references of celebrities or whatever photo references that are just from photo references of people. Don't waste your time painting that. That's not going to make you better, but it will make you probably have more fun and create something marketable, and that's good too. But this is the best thing you can do for your skill building. Let's see, we got a question from Johnny. What mixing medium are you using? At this point, I'm not using any medium. This is only the third layer, so I still don't need lots of medium or any medium, I don't think, at this point. These are traditional oil paints, so they will sink in more than water mixable. So for example, if I wanted to use a medium, this would be the one that I would use. Neo Megilp. Neomegilp. Why? Because it is a moderate to fast dryer, which is good for those of you that are going to be working in layers. It's a moderate dryer, so it's not going to dry super fast or super slow, and it's not that expensive. However, I don't need it. Using what's already on the canvas, and it works just fine for me. We are going to work on this painting twice this week. We are in the make it realistic stage. I'm going to share with you some information that can be perceived as advanced for some. For others, it may be more or less what you do every day, but what I want you to get out of this is going to be the importance of time management. And yes, it is good to be able to know every step, know exactly what to do, but let's be realistic. Most of us are not going to be painting 5 to 7 hours a day. It's not going to happen. Most of us, myself included, are going to paint maybe 4 hours, 3 to 4 hours a day, maybe less. Maybe you're going to paint 3 to 4 hours a week. Time management is going to be a big thing. So, for those of us, which I think are going to be the majority of us, that are only going to be able to paint a couple hours at the most each time, you want to isolate yourself to one structure of the face. And we're specifically talking about portraits. You're going to want to isolate one structure. Now, this is a deviation, a big deviation from how we started this painting. When we started this painting, we went all over the place, working big planes, big angles, making these simple shapes, chopping into those simple shapes. We worked general, very general. Now, we're going to slow down. We're going to have a light brush and a dark brush, and we're going to work with the specific. this is a deviation from what I was taught in school, because I was not taught how to go for the kill, basically, the fine finish, the super looking finish, the finish where something looks just like a thing in real life. I will admit, my teachers, I was lucky with my teachers. My teachers are amazing painters. However, most of the time that I studied with them, I didn't really get the opportunity to work with them very closely with the same painting and take it to a high level. Most of the time, I painted with them with a live model and got to a certain point where they really didn't tell me a specific way to take something to, say, the nth degree, taking it really far. Now this is the point where I'm going to slow down and I'm going to tell you exactly what I did in the last couple minutes where I was painting. Hey, William. Oh, you know Ron Schur? Awesome. Ron Schur was the teacher of my teacher, Robin Fry, and also taught Paulden Hamilton in the Art Students League. So he's twice over my grand teacher. He taught two of my teachers. So that's awesome. That's awesome that you know Ron Schur. I would love to be able to know the information that he gave his students. That would be pretty awesome. And yeah, this is Nelson Shank style. Yeah, I started out the demo, everything but the eye, in the Nelson Shank style. Correct, very correct. Hey Phyllis, you wrote, how or where would I find images of paintings to use as sources instead of photos? Google Arts and Culture, my friend. Check this out. Google Arts and Culture. Believe me, everyone, you will skyrocket your ability as a painter by forgetting about photo references. Forget about those paintings of Rihanna, Beyonce, Jay-Z, those random models that pose under the moonlight and all that stuff. Sure, it looks good. It's very aesthetically appealing, but it's not going to give you new insights into painting, like working from a old master painting will do. And again, the link to this reference is in the description box of this video. However, if you want me to copy and paste it on the chat, I can do so. And yeah, Ron Schur, very successful teacher, very successful painter. He taught Paulden Hamilton, who was, I'd say, my most influential painting teacher, coming up when I was young. I'm still young, but when I was really young. And Robin Fry, of course, great painter in Philadelphia. So I was going to get to what I was talking about with this. And you see, the most important thing, and let me just take you straight to the reference. The most important thing is going to be describing the darks. So basically here, we're pinpointing right here as light curves around the eyelid. And those of you that are taking my online classes, Sonia, I'm pointing you out because I know that you know exactly what I'm talking about now. The angle that the plane has with respect to the light source determines the value that the object has. So by object, I mean each individual plane. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different planes. However, if you do something like this, blast it, right? Now you see the most, John Martin would say the most emphatic, which he was one of my teachers too, darks. here, here, here. That's why I'm starting here, here, and here. I'm going in for the most, and I'm going to just say the most obvious instead of emphatic, because my vocabulary isn't quite as refined as John DeMartin's. So I'm going to say the most obvious dark values, the most obvious value transitions. Okay, you want me to copy and paste the link? Sure, I can do that. Do that right now. Command C, Command V, copy and paste. Okay, so I will warn you all that are, I doubt anyone here is under 18, but if you are, it is a figure painting, so yeah, you'll be fine though. I'm sure that you'll be just fine. But it is something to be mentioned if you're under 18. But not really anything that serious. It's just, YouTube. But anyway, looking for the most obvious darks is going to be very important. Slow down your rate of decision making. Don't go all over the place too fast. Slow down and really observe the values. Slow down and really observe what you're trying to describe. And that's what it is. So you're describing form. The next thing I'm going to talk about, and good, we got a question. We got two of them. Let's see, from Christian. So is this how you simplify it? Yeah, this is how I simplify it. Looking for the most obvious darks. That's how I simplify it. In one simple statement, look for the most obvious darks. That's going to simplify it. And again, I made that up. I wasn't taught that. Except John DeMartin did say the most emphatic darks. He was mainly referring to light and shadow, but I'm referring to something more than light and shadow. And yeah, this is how I simplify it. Try to stick with one area, like this. Stick with one area, because time management is going to be a thing. Even if it takes you the entire time to just paint an eyelid, that's fine. As long as you get there is what's the important thing. Hi Tipu, thanks for watching from Toronto. So from William, do I think about color zones at this stage, or am I focusing on values? And then another question from Johnny, planes of the face, face planes. Good questions. I really like this. Thank you all so much for these questions. Seriously. So, trick question from William. I can tell that you know about basically painting from life and the fundamentals of being a painter's painter. Now, if I am trying to create something that looks good, something that looks structurally sound and can sell, I'm thinking value, completely value. However, I'm lying to you in one way, and that is, I was trained from the very beginning that every plane change is a color change and that everything is color. So I do think a lot about color. However, me telling you to focus, or anyone really, if I were to give you advice and tell you to focus only on color, value would get lost. Hey Jammer, thanks for the good evening. Yes, dark. Start with the dark and then work towards the light. Yes, exactly. Yes, and that pertains exactly to this question. I, as an experienced painter, am focusing a lot with color. I know that the eyelid is kind of a yellowish red versus the kind of greenish blue on the side of the eye socket. I do notice that. However, I'm not going to tell you to do that. For example, if you accidentally paint this red or green, it's still going to look realistic. It's just going to look like she put makeup on. And people do that. People wear makeup and they still look real. She could have face paint on right now and she'll still look like a real person. However, if I mess up the values, it's done. It is done. So that question was really good because the further you get in painting, the more you're going to focus on color. But if you're just getting started with painting, value is going to be the fastest and most efficient way for you to improve. And I'd say probably about 95% of realist painters that are alive today and have existed in all of time focus almost entirely on value, and they've done just fine. Sargent, he did just fine. Rembrandt, he did just fine. Names like that, they did just fine focusing primarily on value. Let's see. Hey, Stephen Beard, haven't seen you in a while here. Thanks for joining. Christian, let's see. You wrote, what you're saying about reference photos versus painting as live models makes so much sense. There's just no way to see planes and such in photography, lighting. I needed this information today. Oh, good. I'm glad the info helps. And let's go to the planes now. Someone was asking about the planes. And yes, absolutely, you're 100% correct. You need to know the planes. You need to know on a structural level what you're building. The planes ends up being the architecture, say like the support beams to a building. Without those, the building collapses. So you need to think about the planes very analytically. This curves out towards the light and curves back in, curves back out for the eyelid, curves back in towards the eyeball, curves back out. Every time something is lighter in value, assuming that the local value doesn't change, and we'll get into that in just a second. Assuming that the local value is consistent, every time something gets lighter, that means that the plane is closer to, perpendicular to the light source. Every time something in the light appears to get darker, like this plane that I'm starting to paint in here, that means that it is closer to becoming parallel to the light source. And that is a kind of a concept in physics. It's kind of like a formula for painting. And when I say physics, don't worry about like writing down your kinematic equations or writing down the conservation of energy and then applying the vectors to find out how much force is being applied to sustain whatever. It's not that complicated. It really isn't. Just know that if your local value is consistent, so for example, there's two areas in a portrait where the local value changes. The eyes and the lips. That's it. Those are the two areas where the local value changes. Unless you're like me when I was a teenager and you've got pimples around your face. That's it. Now, the face will have... Now, I'm going to put quotation marks because I know that there's more blood flow here and our skin generally isn't like a plaster cast. I'm simplifying it for you. Simplifying it for you. In general, this is a different local value, meaning because it's somewhat red, it's slightly darker. This is a different local value because it's somewhat dark, and this is somewhat light relative to the skin. I'm omitting the hair and the eyebrows because it's obvious. Forget about it. That's obvious. But those are the only two things that'll change, really. Hey, William. Yeah, no problem. You wrote, don't paint outside too many light reflections. That's true. Johnny, can you zoom periodically? Yeah, sure. William wrote, don't pop your pimples. Yeah, definitely don't. Sure, I can zoom. Zoom into this. Let me see if I have the right. Yeah, there it is. Which one is it? I think it's this one. Let me see if I can get this thing. Yep. So yeah, I can zoom. It's gonna be a little grainy, but yeah, I can zoom into it a little bit. So we'll leave it like that for now. Next, it's actually better that it's a little grainy, so that you don't focus too much on the details, the minutia. Here's the next thing I'm going to talk about, and it's going to pertain to this stage of the painting specifically, and that's going to be your materials. You can do this with any materials you want. You can do this with crayons if you want to. Crayons that you buy from Five Below or the Dollar Tree, but you're going to make it kind of difficult for yourself. You're going to make it way difficult for yourself. You can do this with hamburgers if you want to, but you're going to make it really difficult for yourself. Why make it difficult for yourself? You see, painting really isn't that expensive of a thing to get into. It's not that expensive. And when you spend money on a brush, you want to make sure that that money is going to be an investment and something that is going to basically give you the most benefit per dollar. Now, I have painted with very cheap brushes and did just fine in the past. I did all right. And then I upgraded my brushes to the same type of brushes that Nelson Shanks used, the same type of brushes that a lot of top professionals these days use. And I'll tell you, the most important thing about a brush is going to be how much paint it holds and how soft of a touch it can have. Those are going to be the biggest advantages to a high-end brush. How much paint can it hold and how soft of a touch can it have? Now, a cheap synthetic will do just fine. If you buy an acrylic brush, a watercolor brush, it's going to be soft. It's going to check that out. It's going to have that quality, and you're going to be just fine. You're going to be able to have a soft touch, but you won't be able to hold that much paint in your brush, which is not going to be that good. Your mixtures are actually going to be quite predictable. You're not going to have that much variation in your colors because you don't have enough paint on your brush, and that's going to cause some challenges. And I dealt with that for years. I dealt with it for many years. Hey George, welcome. That's with a J. Jorge, welcome. Now let me tell you something. These are brushes that I am not sponsored to use. No one's paying me to do any of this. In fact, I'm not getting paid hardly anything for what I'm doing here, which kind of sucks, but that's just life, right? We deal with it. This is a cat's tongue pure red sable, size 6, silver brush. This is a sable silver brush that has a cat's tongue shape. So the cat's tongue shape is absolutely the best when it comes to the fine finesse of things, because when you press down, it has the touch of a filbert, but when you are light like this, when you apply a light touch, it has the effect of a round, the specificity of a round brush. That is very important. And it's a sable brush. Sables can hold a lot of paint and have a really soft touch. And if you take care of them, they last a very long time. These brushes are definitely more than a year old, and they've been lasting for a while. You make sure that you clean your brushes after every use, and they'll do just fine. You'll have no problems with your brushes. Now, you may end up spending double, if not quadruple, on cheap synthetic brushes, cheap acrylic, or cheap brushes in general. You'll spend more money on them because they will fall apart over time. In a year, you might go through five acrylic cheap brushes, whereas in a year, you'll still have your one sable brush. That's assuming with your synthetic, you're not painting like you would with a bristle. Different kind of brush stroke. William, yes. Should beginners use expensive brushes? Absolutely. Because expensive brushes are not that expensive. You're going to pay what? $15 for this? $20 for this? You're going to pay the price of a Chipotle meal for a professional brush that's going to last you a fairly long time, especially if you take care of it. Everybody, painting is not that expensive. It seems expensive, but when you consider other things, like for example, I'm an amateur pool player. You know how much a shaft costs as an amateur pool player? A low deflection shaft is going to cost you like $400. And it's going to last a lifetime, sure, but $400 for a shaft. And you're still going to change it. You're going to swap around different shafts. Every tip on your pool stick is going to cost you like $20 plus. You know what? Painting is a lot cheaper than many things that you can get into. This is a cheap panel. This panel cost me less than like $10. Probably less than $5. It's a cotton canvas that I toned with acrylic paint. It's not that expensive. So the thing that you paint on is actually not as important as what you paint with. Now, obviously, don't paint on don't paint on a t-shirt, or like don't paint on an unprimed surface, obviously, but the paints that you use and the brushes that you use are very important to becoming a better artist. So yeah, beginners out there, don't be afraid to buy this for yourself. 2 size 2 extra long filbert silver brushes and 2 size 6 sable brushes, cat's tongue. Take care of them and they will last you a long time. They really will. Links are in the description box. So Johnny wrote, how about brush length? You know, I've only really known one brush length, and it's this. Let me change the camera angle for a second here. Oops, where did that go? Let me try that again. There it is. Whoa, what happened there? That's weird. Anyway, This is really the only length I've ever known. There are smaller, I guess, like this. But stick with this. Just your standard brush. Um, I think they're all kind of the same. I mean, this is basically the same where the ferrule is at. Just stick with standard long brushes. Right, like these are, I don't know where my other brushes are, but yeah, if you buy Robert Simmons, I don't even know where it is, but try to avoid these brushes, small brushes like this. You want to be able to stay as far as possible, and this is just gonna make it impossible to do that. So stick with long handle, the long handle. Hey Libertas, welcome. How do you clean sable brushes properly? I have been told that you should use cold water and not hot water. Cold water, so of course soap and water. Whoa, where did that go? Hold on a second. And okay, fixed it. Yeah, use cold water. So clean it with your mineral spirits first if you're using traditional. If you're using water mixable, just soap and water and you're done. But if you're using traditional, use your mineral spirits first to clean it, and then cold water, preferably something called Master's Brush Soap. I'm going to type it for you. Master's Brush Soap. That is the best soap you can use for your brushes. Hey Stephanie, Master's Brush Soap is the best that you can use. Absolutely the best. And the next best thing you can do is what I use, which is dish soap, which works all right, but is not as good as the Master's soap. It's just not as good, but it does fine. It does all right. And those of you that are using water mixable, you're not going to have to worry that much about your brushes. Water mixable is really easy on the brushes. And it may make your brushes last even longer. It's that nice to the brushes. Traditional is not. Traditional is harder on your brushes, from my experience. But anyway, I was just saying, when it comes to painting realism, you want to be able to use, like for example, a specific plane like this. I want this to be as much as a marker as I could potentially make it. I want my paintbrush to be like a marker. I want it to be able to make a very specific value, as a very specific color with a very specific mark. In order to have that very specific value, you need to have a lot of paint, as much as you can. In order to have a very specific mark, you need to have a soft and controlled touch. Hopefully that makes sense. A marker has a ton of paint. A marker has a fully saturated tip of color, but it only has one color. These are like hundreds of little colors. So you need to think about that. Hey Tipu, you wrote, I'm painting an apple using red, yellow, and green. How do I make each color lighter or darker? Is it by adding black and white or anything else that can be done? So if you're using red, yellow, and green, red and green are going to neutralize themselves and create a brown. However, you need to look at the value of your red and your green. If you're using a light green and a light red, the darkest value you're going to have is going to be the dark of your light green and your light red. So if your red and your green are not dark enough, you're going to have to add something darker. Just like you said, probably a black. You're going to have to add a black to that. Hey, you go bound. Well, thank you for watching. So Johnny wrote, you hang your brushes ferrule side down on a brush tree. It keeps paint from coagulating. So yeah, you can do that too. You can let me for a very specific mark now. I'm actually going to bring out a round. So hanging the brushes upside down is a good idea. What I was told is to avoid having the brushes dry like this, leaving them like that, because what will happen is the pigment, whatever is left after you clean it, will go down into your ferrule. However, me being who I am, I have tried to break every rule possible, and I have left some brushes to dry like this. And I didn't really notice a big difference, but I'm sure with these brushes, I would never do it with these brushes, but back in the day I did leave some brushes like that. I also did try to crack paintings, which I don't suggest. I tried to crack paintings in the past, and they wouldn't crack. So these materials, these days, these materials are actually pretty good. But yes, good pointer, Johnny. Try to do exactly as you said. Hang the paint or the brushes upside down if possible. Let gravity help you out. Now, when you're trying to make something look realistic, you need to be very conscientious of the fact that things are not going to go completely right at first attempt. When you're first laying down values like this, a lot of stuff happens in a short amount of time. When you're getting into this stage, the finesse of things, not a lot of stuff is going to happen in a long period of time, so it gets reversed. So let me say that again. When you're starting out, a lot of stuff happens in a short period of time. When you're in the later stages of a painting, not a lot of stuff happens in a long period of time. Therefore, more patience is going to be required, which is a problem for YouTubers. It's a problem for people like me. It's boring. This stage is really boring to look at. One of my teachers once told me that watching someone paint is like watching water boil. It's not that exciting. Which is why I usually don't do a stream for a long period of time, or I don't do many streams on one painting because I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose your attention. However, if you're focused, if you like this stuff, let me know that you're interested in this. Write down in the comments, share it to people. Anything you can do to help spread the word about these streams, because not a lot of people will share this information with you because, like me, they need to make a living. So that's something we need to work together on. You and me, we're a team. Now this is the corner of the tear duct. And I'm pretty much looking at plane per plane. Color is a thing. I am considering the color as I do this, but I'm also focusing heavily on the values. But as you can see, I'm using the gradation on the palette. I really am thankful for the questions, everyone. It really does help with the stream. Now it helps to have a light brush and a dark brush, but at this point I'm kind of just using one brush because I'm sticking with one area, so I'm going to try to fix that. This will be my dark and this will be my light. I'm going to have to clean it to mineral spirits. So Christina, you wrote the minutia kills me when I'm painting, but I love watching someone else do it. Oh, good, good. Yeah, as long as somebody else is doing it, right? So yeah, the patience is built over time. And let me tell you something. I have a lot more patience for this when I'm doing a live stream than I do in real life. Like when I'm not doing a live stream, I kind of just want to go play pool. Um, but for example, I've been doing this for years, and I would rather do this and help others while I'm in the middle of this than do this by myself. Um, I can't. Like I would rather do this with you, which is different. When I first started doing live streams in 2020, um, I was terrified. I was scared to talk to you live. I was scared to say something silly. Now I'm just so used to it. I'd much rather do this than not. Um, so maybe it would help if you find some, like, listen to a podcast, maybe play this video, maybe not watch it, but just play it on the side, kind of like a podcast. Have something on the background that will help you be able to concentrate. For example, for me being an amateur pool player, when I'm at the academy that I go to practice almost every day, I always have something playing on the TV. Something is always on the TV. Today I watched How High 1 and 2. I ended up watching, I think it was Rampage or something, when the animals got huge, like the kind of like the Rock's version of Godzilla. I watched it. I watched Friday, next Friday, Friday after next, a bunch of stuff while I'm practicing pool because it helps me focus to have something on the side. Hey Johnny. Oh, good. I'm glad. Thank you for the comment. I'm glad that you're learning a lot from me. Thank you. Thank you. Christina, you wrote, well appreciated. There are lots of tutorials out there, but the way you're doing it somehow is more helpful. Oh, good. I'm glad. I'm actually making a drawing correction. The eyebrow is a little bit closer to the eye. And again, I would suggest having a light and a dark brush, but I keep switching them around. This is exactly why I said give yourself the entire session for one shape. Because look at this, we're about to pass an hour soon, and I only do these streams for about an hour anyway. So an hour on this. Because most of us have to go to sleep and get ready for work. We've got families, we've got things we gotta do, we gotta take out the trash, we gotta get some rest, we gotta prepare for things we gotta do in life. So if you're trying to learn how to finish a painting, how to make it look realistic, take your time. Give yourself a session per feature if that's what it takes. 1, 2, 3, 4 days there per feature. Say 5 will be the mask of the face. And it's worth it. You won't frustrate yourself. Imagine trying to do all of this in one day. Don't give yourself that anxiety. It's not worth it. Every one of you is a great painter that just needs the right training. All of you, every single one of you is a great painter that needs the right training. With the right training and enough time spent training, well, you'll be painting paintings like Nelson. You'll be painting better than me. You'll be able to paint with such freedom, such confidence, and it's totally possible. It really is. I'm not trying to give you a Rocky Balboa speech or anything like that. I'm just telling you that's how it is. It is possible. All it takes is the right training. Right training, time, dedication. If you've got the dedication, you're gonna put in the time. And I usually suggest painting the eye socket structure before the eyebrow. So I'm kind of cutting the eyebrow out. I'm going back and forth with it really. Trying to get that careful soft edge there. I mean, I've seen some students like in like a year, in like 2 years, just dramatically improve. And in the beginning, I've seen some improve in like weeks. It's that fast. And I do think it has a lot to do with these master studies. I don't think they get enough credit. Because once you paint from life, once you do your own painting, you're going to have this in the back of your mind. That's why when I started this painting, I was able to paint somewhat close to how Nelson would do his demos. Like this is somewhat close. This area here is somewhat close to how Nelson would have started it. And I wouldn't have been able to do that without doing a bunch of master studies. We're getting close to making this eye look realistic. It's pretty much already there. And I didn't really talk about the paints. You can use traditional or water mixable. If you're going to use water mixable, I would 100% recommend Cobra Talent. But for traditional, you don't gotta spend that much money. Just use Winsor Newton and Gamblin, and you'll be just fine. Yeah, I'm really appreciative of all your comments today, everyone. That makes me feel a lot better because I'm always nervous about the third sitting, and we're gonna have a fourth on this one. So definitely help me out. I'm relying on you. If you like learning about this, if you like this, learning about this stage in painting, which is not often spoken of, please like the video, share it, help spread the word. Goes a long way. What's going on, Harjot? What's up? Haven't heard from you in a while. I'm still here in Alexandria. Signed our lease again, so we'll be here for another year. I'm glad to have you back here. The corgis. I don't know what that is, but I have a Shiba Inu. If you mean the dog. So William, you wrote use kerosene. Kerosene. I might have missed something there. So Harjot, you're job hunting? Well, there's plenty of jobs here. Northern Virginia has plenty of jobs from what I've seen. I'm fortunate that I get to do this. And teaching on Patreon, of course. Oh, thanks, Sonia, Hansel Dog. Glad you recommend the classes. So Harjot, you meant the kerosene. Well, it's that time of the night, huh? So yeah, it's gonna be Hugo's birthday soon, everyone. He's gonna turn 1 year. My Shiba Inu. December 15th. He's gonna turn 1 year. Okay. Oh, yours is on the 14th? Oh, wow. That is a close. Wow. Well, happy almost birthday. Have I ever considered doing anime portraits or superhero portraits? I can't say I ever have. I'm not very good at drawing like non-representational things, like cartoons and such. I haven't tried it before. I think that takes a different kind of creativity. I think for me, being able to do these streams and make this kind of painting at least somewhat known is really important to me. It doesn't get as much attention. I feel like everybody's always painting pictures of celebrities and things like that. Like I want this to be known, at least have a bigger outreach. So after I finish up this plane, I think that'll be good for today. We're gonna do a little recap though of everything I mentioned in the beginning. So that should be good for that. Let's see, Christina wrote, I really like to paint in a looser, maybe more expressive style, but my brain wants realism, so I'm just leaning in. He wrote, you're tired of fighting it. So, interesting that you mentioned that. It's curious that you mentioned that. If you saw how this was started, the very first one, it was loose as heck. I mean, there was brush strokes all over the place. It was a wild start to this painting. Let's see if I can adjust that for you. Yeah, there was brush strokes all over the place. There was color, there was planes everywhere. It was very loose. Just like how Nelson Shanks would have started his demos. And then we slowed down, and you see this is almost identical to what you see up there. It's make the thing look like the thing. So, Christina, you can start loose. You can start slow. You can start any speed that you want. It's not so much the speed, but if you want to have more practice on loosening up, the best thing to do is to draw with charcoal. And I've got some videos on the YouTube channel where we did like expressions, different expressions of faces. We would draw faces in like a couple minutes. I think it was like 5 minutes or so with charcoal. And that'll really help with that. But eventually it does slow down, gets a bit more tight. So about the concept of painting things more realistic, or in this case, more naturalistic is a better term because it looks more like what you see in real life as opposed to a photograph. There really aren't that many, at least in my experience, not that many teachers that will guide you step by step towards the finish, those final stages, those final brush strokes for one particular thing. And maybe there are now with with YouTube. Maybe there's others that can describe it to you. But using an old master reference, using a reference of a painting is really going to be the conversation starter. If someone's trying to explain this to you using a photograph of a person, what they're doing is teaching you how to render something. They're not actually teaching you how to make a thing look like a thing. Making a thing look like a thing is done from working from life. And if you can't work from life, you're going to have to work from a painting just like that. That's the next best thing. So forget about the photographs. But hopefully there's other people out there like me that are showing you how to do this from the references. And like I said, this was my deviation from how I was taught initially, just like I mentioned earlier today. And another thing, a big thing really, is to isolate. When you're trying to get into the define realism, isolate. Focus on just one thing for that session, because most of us don't have all day to work on a painting. So focus on the one thing, and let that be your guide. This will be our guide for this eye. It'll be our guide for everything else. And you can already, looking at this, you can envision what the finish of the painting will look like. Let's see, from William, do you use palette knife to mix paint? Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes. I mean, we did a whole painting with palette knife one time. I kid you not, I don't know if you were here for that. I still have it. It is not a good looking painting, but I did the entire thing with palette knife. This whole thing was done with palette knife. I don't know how this was done with palette knife, but it was. But you can see the difference between brush and palette knife. But yeah, sometimes I do mix with palette knife. It's definitely easier to get a very specific color as opposed to brush. But brush is easier to control a range. Palette knife, you have to mix every little thing. Brush, much easier. But there's pros and cons to them both. This is the point where I will ask if there are any last minute questions. And thank you for all the likes, everyone. I think we're at about 20. So thank you for the likes as well. And don't forget, Wednesday, we will continue this painting. And hopefully, if you enjoy Wednesday, we will continue to work on it. If you're tired of it on Wednesday, we'll start another one the next time. Remember, these streams are Mondays and Wednesdays, 6:45 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Okay, so we got a question here. Let's see, from William, how many portraits did you do before you got a likeness? That's a good question. How many portraits did I do before I got a likeness? I don't know, probably like 10 maybe, I don't know. I definitely didn't get a likeness on my first portrait. And I know because my mom posed for me for a portrait and she didn't like it, but man, there's not many moms out there that would support a young artist like mine did. So I'm very thankful for her. She definitely, I put her through a lot with me wanting to be an artist. But yeah, if you have someone that can pose for you, it will help you a lot, especially when it comes to likeness, because we all know that when we take a picture of ourselves, we question the picture. That picture doesn't look like me, and oftentimes it doesn't because of perspective. But probably 10 portraits from life, maybe, is what it took me to get a resemblance, I guess, of a real life person. But yeah, I was lucky. I mean, definitely a lot of respect, lots of respect for my mom. Like she posed for me. She helped me with art school. Like she definitely helped me with a lot. Um, and that was probably one of the first likenesses I think I ever got. Um, until I eventually moved to art school. But have patience, everyone. You might get it in the second, third, or maybe even your first. You might get a likeness even faster than I did. Oh, thank you, Hansel Dog. Okay, so it looks like that's about it for today. Once again, remember, if you would like to take your online art education with me further, please check out my online classes on my Patreon, which is linked in the description box of this video, along with the link to this reference. Once again, thank you all so much for watching, and I will be back on Wednesday, 6:45 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. I wish you all the very best, and I'll see you on the next one.